Call the Tuesday, January 22nd, Belvidere City Council regular meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Borowitz. Brooks.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Frank. Here. Freeman. Here. Porter.
Here.
Radcliffe.
Here.
Sanderson.
Here.
Snow.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
9 present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, as our City Council convenes this evening, we ask the blessing of your gentle and caring hand, guiding us to wisdom, humility, and fairness as we conduct the community's business. Today's fresh white blanket of pristine snow reminds us of innocence, new beginnings, and renewed hope for the world. May you watch over those who ventured out in the storm this evening and see all safely home. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Under public comment, I don't believe we have anybody registered to speak this evening, but I'd like to share something with you. I don't know how many of you saw this on Sunday in the Rockford by God Register Star. Kudos to Belvidere Rockford on approval of the Land Bank Authority, and I highlighted a couple of parts that I'll read. Here in Northern Illinois, the City of Belvidere has taken the lead in approving the Northern Illinois Land Bank Authority. Mayor Mike Chamberlain and the Belvidere City Council are to be commended for their forward-thinking passage of this measure. Regional Planning Council, Region 1, the City of Belvidere, as party to the intergovernmental agreement instituting the land bank, has the home rule powers necessary for formation and execution of the land bank. So thank you all. It's nice for a change to see our name up there in lights, if you will. Thank you. Next, we have approval of minutes of the regular meeting of the Belvidere City Council of January 7th, 2019, as presented. I have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, boy, I got a bunch. I got a motion by Alderman Crawford, second by Alderman Snow. Questions, comments, or proposed amendments to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Thank you. It's approved unanimously. Under public hearing this evening, we have none. Under special messages and proclamations, I kind of just already did that. So next up, under number 7, it's approval of expenditures. General and special fund expenditures of $1,544,263.09. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Ratcliffe, third by Alderman Porter. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Aye. Porter. Radcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
9 in favor.
General and special fund expenditures are approved unanimously. Brings us to water and sewer fund expenditures of $683,336.89. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Ratcliffe. Questions, comments, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Aye. Porter.
Aye.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Water and sewer fund expenditures are approved unanimously. Next up, under committee reports and minutes of city officers, please note items A through G have been received and placed on file. Brings us to item H, minutes of the Committee of the Whole, Building, Planning and Zoning and Public Works of January 14th, 2019. Have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion by Alderman Crawford, second by Alderman Sanderson. Questions, comments, or proposed amendments to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Freeman. Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Minutes are approved unanimously, which brings us to number 9, unfinished business. First item we have tonight is ordinance 435H, a second reading. We will need to remove this from the table. May I have a motion? Motion by Alderman Frank, second by Alderman Brooks. Questions, comments, further discussion? All those in favor of removing it from the table will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson. Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. 9 in favor.
Unanimous vote removes it from the table. Attorney Drella will brief us on the next procedures.
As you know, this came back to committee about a week ago, at which time the committee identified several additional concepts they would like to see included in any ordinance that were to pass. So I took a stab at trying to memorialize those in a document that was prepared in your packets. I'll go through it briefly with you. Essentially what I did was to actually do a hybrid ordinance. It still requires a change of the zoning code to allow a residential coop within the original district that was contemplated. However, I removed all the restrictions from the zoning code and actually added a new article within our general city of Belvidere municipal code to govern the coops. And the reason I did that was there seemed to be a consensus from the committee that they want to see permits issued for these purposes, limit the number that were issued, similar to what we did with the gaming locations and things like that. And there's really no precedence or ability to do that through your zoning code. So by removing those regulations from the zoning code, incorporating them in our municipal code, I was able to do that. So starting with really section 3 of the ordinance, that's most of the new information. And it requires a permit to keep chickens within the city of Belvidere, requires a person to obtain a chicken coop permit prior to keeping chickens within the city, limits the number of chicken coop permits that are available to 25, and that was a number that the committee had thrown out there. Requires them to apply for the permit, include things like a site plan, where the coop's going to be, things like that. It does require notice to the neighbors by first-class mail, which is another concept that the committee had brought forward. I recall somebody wishing to have a 1-year term on each permit that had to be renewed. I'm not sure that is really necessary, but that is in here as well, so they will expire on April 30th following the issuance of the permit, just like all of the other permits issued by the city. It does require a $10 fee both for the initial permit as well as any renewal. The regulations that were originally contained within the zoning code are now found in 18-52, and that's at the bottom of page 3. And all those conditions really stayed the same. And then I put in our usual penalties that we have for all of our ordinance violations, which is a minimum fine of $100 plus court cost each day that the violation continues. I put in a provision that the permit can be revoked or suspended by the mayor upon showing that they violated our code. And there had been some talk about doing this as a pilot program, and I did put language regarding that in section 18-54 that's found on page 5 of the ordinance. The reason I did I didn't actually have the ordinance expire after 1 year for 2 reasons. One, sunset clauses, while legal in Illinois in some cases, they're kind of disfavored for one very good reason. If you forget to renew it and you didn't intend to revoke it, you're kind of stuck in a twilight zone. So I put in there was that this is a pilot program in that we are supposed to review this a year out, and then at that point, if we want to, we can revoke it. But that way, if we all forget to do that in a year, because everything's going along and super fine, we all just kind of forget about it, they're not out in limbo and suddenly illegal. No. Well, I mean, other than the usual agenda items. Typically, we would not, but we could. This next set of changes are found in section 4, and they're really just for clarification purposes, but as part of the zoning code, the original section 4 indicated that the following sections would be amended to read as follows, but left out all the text. I just changed that to be renumbered and recodified as follows. That way our codification company doesn't accidentally delete the text when they get to that. Each one of these, or this amendments that I placed before you, you do not have to adopt it all. You can choose not to. You can take some and leave some out if you choose. When I drafted this, I really threw the kitchen sink in, literally. And everything that I thought I heard discussed at that committee meeting, I included in this ordinance. It doesn't mean that you want to do all of it. You may or may not want to. That's for you to decide. If you choose to, if you don't want to adopt this at all and you want to simply defeat the motion, you can vote on the ordinance as is. If you wish to adopt some of these additions, you can ask to amend by including those additions and not mention the other ones. If you want to adopt it as I have prepared it, you can simply make an amendment to modify or amend section 435H as presented by the city attorney this evening. It is up to you how you want to proceed.
I make a motion to adopt it, shown here in the current ordinance.
The current ordinance being the one I presented, or the one that's,
When it's presented in our package.
So
So
an
that'd be a-
amended ordinance as per what he's
Yeah.
detailed to us. So we have a motion. Do we have a
second it. I'll second it.
I had was that a second or your hand?
No, I wanted to make a motion to amend some of the things in this.
Now it's out there, we can amend it, correct?
this will get
Okay.
confusing, but yes.
Okay, here's the thing. Can we open this for discussion and discuss what you presented and change that, or do we have to do it, do we have to vote down the amendment?
No. You can actually, if Mr. Snow were to, Alderman Snow were to withdraw his motion at this point, you could discuss what's in here now. We can make some changes and then do it as a whole-scale amendment later if you
I
wish
think
to.
that makes more sense than having a 2-hour discussion about adding this and subtracting that. So would you be kind enough to withdraw? And those that would wish to change what was presented by Mr. Drella, would you make your comments now?
Or if you have any questions on it.
Alderman Freeman.
I would like to see section 18-52A to be amended to, if I recall, and I think Gina maybe might be able to answer, a standard lot is like 66 by 166, right?
Correct. Minimum lot width is 65 feet. They're usually 66 by 132.
So if we amended that to be at least 15 feet from the lot line, that would be 30 feet in, you still have your 30 feet in the middle to be able to build your coop, so you're not that close to each neighbor. The other thing that I marked was, to add, as per Alderman Sanderson's, one of his concerns, that any electricity that is run to a coop must be done so by city permit and inspection.
Any permanent electrical connection to the city, any permanent electrical change would require a permit anyway, under our current codes. Could they run an electrical cord out there? They can do that for their tree lights, for anything else as it stands now. But any permanent electrical installation still requires code automatically.
But I think
Because
my
permits.
research was like most of the coops are on like wheels and you can move them around your yard.
Which should be a reason why they couldn't have a permanent electrical installation to be inspected.
Are you keeping track of these ideas?
I wrote down the one, before we make a motion to amend, I might want to see at least a raise of hands from the council, which ones we're going to put in there.
Who's in favor of
The
amendment
15-foot?
of the 15-foot from the lot line? Show of hands.
Okay.
Okay, that's a majority. Okay, additional amendments,
Or questions?
questions? Alderman Snow?
Question, on page 3, C, the only fee, simple owner, blah, blah, blah. Is that basically saying that the landlord, if it's needs to sign off on it?
That's exactly why it's there.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
A la Pearl Place, if they wanted to have a coop for the residents there.
Or any other.
Physical therapy or
You know,
whatever,
you figure what, 20 to 30% of our housing stock is now rental.
rental, so.
A tenant couldn't go out and get a permit for a coop without the landlord saying it's okay.
And then the other thing is I personally think we need to, obviously, the property is subject to inspection, but I think before the permit's issued, the building department, code enforcement needs to go out and assess the current property as it is and make sure all violations are taken care of before they get the permit, whether they've got too many cars sitting in the grass, whatever, to bring those into compliance so that you don't have just another perpetual issue of somebody, now they've got a chicken coop that we gotta monitor.
Would that be okay to state as existing property must be in accordance with compliance with all other city ordinances?
I would actually,
Or what do you think?
I kind of like that idea. But I don't know if it makes sense to put it in this one code or perhaps look at our overall codes and maybe make a general regulation that you can't get a permit from the city until all
anything.
existing code violations, any permit from the city until all existing code violations are corrected. With the exception, of course, for permits to correct a violation, but
That would also include home occupation permits, probably.
that's, yeah, do you want me to look at doing that? I mean, we can always come back, if you want to put it here, we can always come back and amend it in the future, but that make more sense to have a general regulation.
So that's gonna mean that we're gonna have to send somebody out anytime anybody wants to get any permit for any purpose in the city to have their property inspected.
That would, yes.
And so manpower-wise, how are we gonna do that?
That I don't know.
I have a question on, are you saying these owners that have chicken coops are going to have a home occupation because it's a
No.
No.
business?
No.
That was just
no.
throwing that type.
Okay.
No.
What he's talking about is an overall requirement that anybody that applies for a permit to do anything in the city has to have their property in compliance before they're granted a permit to do something else.
And he initially talked about terms of these permits, but there's really no reason why he couldn't do it for all permits, all except for staff limitations.
In relationship to that, when, you know, it makes sense to talk about this, but why don't you, have the city attorney do some research or something to make sure that, something that will work.
Well, yeah.
And then also, so we can get the stats on how many times we have to send her out, and we're not having her send up for other stuff. So, we might be able to do something, but let's attack this in a certain different
So
manner.
you have that, all those in favor of adding that to the,
Oh, no, he doesn't want it.
No, I don't wanna do it now.
okay, you don't wanna do it at
I
all now?
wanna do it then maybe at the next committee meeting or something.
Well, we'll talk about department head first to see staff limitations, things like that. We can come back to you with that
Because there's so
information.
many other things involved.
So to leave it
besides-
out of this particular
Yeah,
ordinance
but with the
now?
intention.
Okay.
If Mr. Snow wants to put it here, we can. I'm just thinking it might make more sense to do it at a more global.
Once we address it, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay. Alderman Frank?
Are we gonna review this after a year, after the pilot program, to see
That's
if
in
it's?
there, yeah.
Yeah, what I talked about was in section 18-54, I put in the second sentence, the corporate authorities may review the effect of this ordinance 1 year after its adoption. If it deems appropriate, repeal this ordinance in whole or in part, once again making the keeping of chickens unlawful within the city. In that event, in such event, the chicken coop permits previously issued shall be null and void, and all holders of such permits shall remove any chickens from the city within 10 days. The city shall not be liable in any manner for the cost of any personal property, including but not limited to chicken coops, fencing, or chickens, in the event this ordinance or parts of this ordinance are repealed, or is repealed. The reason why I put that in there as a may was, we might forget. It happens. And I don't want them to become unlawful by us forgetting to do that. But I will preserve our ability to do it.
Alderman Snow, then Alderman Freeman.
So at this point, with that clause, if for some reason we do revoke it,
and we don't continue it, the people need to take down everything, including their new 10 by 12 shed
Yep.
as well.
That's harsh.
Or convert it, I guess, to a shed if they are lawfully able to have one.
That's just harsh. But it's the will of the council. Alderman Freeman?
So there's a provision in the penalties that the mayor may revoke or suspend a permit if it's in violation of any of the things. Now, what about like excessive complaints? Will the mayor be able to say, you know, we've had this many, I'm not talking about just one neighbor that doesn't like his other neighbor, but multiple neighbors complaining about someone, can the mayor say, you know what, we've had this many complaints from multiple neighbors and you gotta go?
No, and nor could you legally do that. The only way any government can revoke a permit that was lawfully issued is if there's some kind of violation of the regulations previously enacted by the legislative body, you guys. If he has complaints and we go out and the enforcement officer identifies actual complaints that are violations of the code, then yes, the mayor could suspend it. But if there's complaints because the neighbors just don't like each other, but there's no violation, then no, nor should he be able to.
Okay, Alderman Frank?
I'm just wondering if Kara has any input, how she feels about this?
Kara, can you talk? She has a sore throat, everybody.
I don't have a sore throat. I have laryngitis, so I'm okay.
Okay, laryngitis, excuse me.
It's okay. I would like to be asked specific questions as to how you guys want to ask me or.
Okay, my question is, I know you're overloaded with code violations as it is, so I'm just wondering if this is just gonna add more to your plate.
It's possible. I mean, things can always go up or down with the violations. The way I feel about it is that I check to make sure there's no chickens if I get a complaint anyway. So if I get a complaint to go check on the chickens that we're allowing, then it's pretty much the same to me.
Okay, Alderman Snow, then Alderman Sanderson.
And I guess, just so we all have clarity on the notice to adjoining properties before they come in for permit, they bring in their, a little more clarity on that. Is it the neighbors across the street, kind of like the zoning, and I realize it's not as inclusive as a zoning, which is 250 feet, blah, 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 but does it include the people across the street? If you've got a yard that's kitty corner, does it include them, or is it just strictly the left, the right, the rear?
In an adjacent property owner would include those, in my opinion, across the street. It probably would not necessarily include those that are kitty corner if you're on a corner lot. That being said, you'll also notice that while they're required to give them notice, that does not give the adjoining property a right to object to the issuance of the permit. Because quite frankly, the only place you even see that anywhere is in your zoning codes under state law, and then it still requires 80% of the property owners to object, and all that does is increase the vote requirement by the city council. You cannot outright deny a permit because your neighbor doesn't like it, if it's otherwise lawful. So the purpose of the notice provisions was, one, the council wanted to see the neighbors getting notice so that they know it's coming. It doesn't give us the right to deny the permit.
Alderman Porter? I'm sorry. Sean has said no to you, and unless you're a Porter, so, sorry, Mark.
Just a quick one, you know, some of the fears is the smell of the chickens, or enforcement of being able to clean up the mess, if there's a mess. If someone doesn't properly maintain their chicken coop, like, which people have said you can do, but I have also, you know, I've helped take care of chickens when I was younger. Sometimes they throw hay down, and then the manure and everything just gets piled up, and they have to shovel that stuff away. If they don't do that, that can bring an odor to their neighbor's yard, just like a dog, someone doesn't clean up after a dog, or worse. So is that part of the enforcement, that, you know, the zoning officer could enforce some ordinance that has a smell that's bothering the neighbors, or?
Gina, would that
What
fall
kind of
more under
enforcement
the
can they do?
extension service or the?
So one of the conditions is that the interior area of any shelter and the outdoor enclosure shall be maintained in a sanitary condition. So if it is overflowing with waste, I would say that's not sanitary, and that would be an enforceable violation then.
Does the city attorney concur that you could do something about that?
That's why there's a $100 fine in the code per violation.
Okay, just, thanks.
Okay, Alderman Porter? Huh, wow, you guys must be psychic. Okay, Alderman Crawford?
Yeah, Mayor, I didn't like the idea about if we were gonna stop somebody from having chickens, that they take down the structure in that. I think it, for some people, can be converted to a shed or something. I wouldn't think it's too fair to have them, spend that money on what they're doing and then have to take it all out.
I would concur that they shouldn't have to tear down the shed, but they couldn't use it for chickens any longer.
I get the point. I don't know that would necessarily change the ordinance. Obviously, and I don't see it being an issue, but if the coop would qualify as a shed, and they don't already have a shed in the property, because of course we're limited to one, I believe, per residential property now, I don't see the building department actually forcing them to tear it down. But you gotta keep in mind that the way this was described by the planning department as well as the young ladies that presented us from the school, is that some of these coops are gonna be movable. Now, I don't know if they're gonna be on wheels or what, or just on skids, but that might disqualify it as a shed under our building code. I don't know if they require a foundation or not. I don't think they do. I know the ones I used to have didn't, they're just on the ground. But obviously, if it was qualified as a shed, and they didn't already have a shed, I don't see us making them tear it down.
I think you have to use some common sense when you address any of these things. People are gonna invest a good deal of money into doing this and doing it right, and I would suspect the people that come forward for the first 25 are gonna do it right. I mean, it makes no sense not to. Alderman Snow?
And Gina, maybe you would be able to answer this. If somebody did have a second shed that fell out of this purview, would they be able to get a variance for that?
No.
Or is that a non-variance item?
You cannot get a variance for the number of sheds, but that was one of the reasons why the council wanted the 1-year renewal on the permits. That way Kara could take a list of all the permits she issued the previous year, go out and verify to see if they're still being used as chicken coops or if they have been converted into another structure, because you are only allowed one shed. If you look up chicken coops nowadays, they vary so greatly. Some are on wheels so that you can wheel them around so that the chickens have fresh grass patches to be on. Some are a little bit more permanent. We had one that was a retrofitted VW bug. There's been some, like some of the nicer dog houses retrofitted if you only have 1 or 2 chickens. And then if you go on Craigslist and eBay and the buy-sell trade, there's, people, maybe they upgraded to a larger coop and they're trying to get rid of the smaller one. Because again, it's limited to only 5 chickens. So they're not going to be outrageously sized coops because you don't have that many chickens. But yeah, people could convert them into a shed if allowed. If it's a smaller one, they may convert it into a doghouse, or they could sell them, change them around. There's such a wide variety in the styles of chicken coops, it's kind of hard to even take a guess on what could become of them.
Alderman?
One simple question. Gina, are you gonna have chickens that they can roam free, or do they have to be contained in their pen?
They have to, per the code, they have to be, that you can have the coop, and then they have to be either in the coop or the attached outdoor enclosure. And the outdoor enclosure is screened in on the sides and the top. So the top screening is required for 2 reasons. You can have airborne attacks from hawks and stuff. And, some chickens, like turkeys, they can flutter a little bit. So it's going to be screened from the sides and the top. So they'll be completely enclosed.
Because I had, I'm a dog sitter, and one of the dogs was killed by a coyote. And sometimes these chickens roam all through the day, and then I put them back in at night. So I didn't know if it was going to cause a lot of problem with coyotes coming into town.
Yeah, in the more rural areas, they'll let them roam and they just have the coop to go in and out of. These will have to be enclosed in the coop and a fenced-in area, so they'll be not free roaming the backyard at all.
Alderman Sanderson.
Just, to piggyback on that a little bit, you said, so they have a fence to contain them in. Do they have to have a fence around their backyard to contain the site or anything, or can they have just a chain link fence with top and bottom and a coop, but have an open space if they don't already have a backyard fence?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't in our code. We do not have anything about screening in the whole perimeter, just the coop and the attached enclosure to the coop. I have seen some where it says it needs to be fencing or landscaping, and others that didn't need it. My feeling was to force someone to have a fence or put up landscaping, the neighbors may hate that even more. Some neighbors like the more open feel, some neighbors want a fence. I think it's a 50-50 on where neighbors would stand on that. Some don't like that enclosed feel that if there's fencing around them. So we left that out.
Just want to know where we stand.
Additional other suggestions for amendments? Could you list the amendments to the amendments for me, please?
All of the amendments. If the council wishes, they could make a motion to amend ordinance 435H as presented by the city attorney this evening with the additional amendments of modifying section 18-52 subparagraph A to make the setback 15 feet.
And that's pretty much the one that everybody agreed on. May I have a motion to that effect for the amendment? A motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Brooks. All those in favor of the amendments will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Sanderson,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Brooks, Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
9 in favor.
The amendments are approved unanimously, so now we vote again on ordinance 435H, a second reading as amended.
I'll make that motion.
We have the
We have
motion from the
motion.
original
Second.
meeting.
All those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Sanderson,
No.
Snow,
No.
Stevens,
No.
Brooks, Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
No.
Freeman, Porter,
No.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
4 in favor, 5 against.
Motion is lost. I'm sorry, ladies. The council has found it not in the best interest of the city to approve your motions. Thank you for all the hard work you did, and I think it's a great exercise regardless of outcome. Thank you. Certainly.
Why did we go through all of that? Yeah, why?
I'd be happy to answer that
Please
myself.
do.
Um,
One at a time.
Reason is because I wasn't in favor of it, but if it does pass, I'd rather have it be not as it was originally presented.
Well, you knew exactly where you were gonna vote. We could've got this over in 5 minutes.
The only amendment made was to the setback. You didn't even propose any other amendments.
It was all changed. By the city attorney from the committee.
Okay. Again, this is an exercise in government. I don't think we really had the opportunity to present this. I think it would have been better to have had a referendum to see if the, anyway, let's move on. Under new business, we have a silent reading of ordinance 443H, first reading, and I'll read this in for the record. It's an ordinance amending section 114-404B of the Belvidere Municipal Code to modify sewer rates. Then under item B, we have a resolution, Resolution 2087, 2019, a resolution to release certain executive session minutes pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/1 ET Sec. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Ratcliffe. May I have a second? Alderman Snow. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning approval of Resolution 2087-2019? Hearing none, all those in favor, Will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks. Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
8 in favor.
Resolution is passed. Brings us to item C, Resolution 2088-2019, a resolution permanently dedicating a portion of Menominee Street as Noble Way in honor of our retired police chief, Jan Noble. A motion to approve. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Ratcliffe. Questions, comments, or further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, Will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks. Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion, or the resolution is approved unanimously, and I will notify the chief in the morning. Next up, we have motions, City County Coordinating Committee of December 12th, 2018. The motions will be presented by Co-Chairman Snow. Co-Chairman Snow, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. A, motion to approve invoice number 309797 from TRC in the amount of $5,363.42 with a 50-50 split between the city and the county.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the motion will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brooks. Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously.
B, motion to approve invoice number 1934911 from PDC Laboratories in the amount of $8,266 with a 50-50 split between the city and the county.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow. Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks. 9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously.
C, motion to approve the annual scope of work from TRC in the amount of $33,500.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion? Alderman Snow.
And just a heads up, I was talking to Ken Terranoni the other day, and they're still going through the process of trying to get the permits or the approval to put the solar on the landfill, but apparently now it's a big lottery system, so it's going to be a big crapshoot whether or not we get the luck of the draw to put ours out.
Okay. Questions, comments, further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor, will, your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Porter.
Aye.
Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Brooks. Crawford.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, Co-Chairman Snow. Next up, we have motions forward from Committee of the Whole, Building, Planning and Zoning and Public Works of January 14th, 2019. The motions will be presented by Chairman Brooks. Chairman Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a motion to approve the purchase of a parking lot on East Lincoln Avenue in the amount of $75,000. This lot is currently owned by Jerry Rowe.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion? Alderman Snow.
And so is the scope of this still going to be the 3 payments over 3 years for the 25,000, or are we going to go
I
forward?
would address Ms. Tobin on her input on that.
I would prefer just one payment. I think the city attorney would probably agree it's a little bit cleaner. It's easier for our auditing purposes. We have the money due to the motor fuel tax money that has been coming in this year.
The one payment is easier. This will actually come back in ordinance form in the future, ordinance or resolution form at least. I have drafted a beginning of a contract to present to the seller, although I have not done that yet, as I still have to obtain the legal and some other information. He's retained an attorney whose name I have. I'll be contacting her later this week.
Additional questions or comments? Alderman Freeman.
So if we purchase this, Brent, then improvements that we need to make to that lot, are you going to have to budget that in your Public Works budget?
Yes, when it comes back before you in the ordinance form, I'll have a preliminary estimate of cost for what improvements would have to be done. And this would be a matter over time is how those are budgeted, but it would be some of that, or if not all of it, would be reflected through the budget process.
It would be Public Works budget, though, not general fund?
Yeah, it's correct, street department, general fund portion of the budget.
Additional questions or comments? Yes, Alderman Frank.
I have one for Brent. So it's just strictly going to be repaved, or is there a question of what's underneath? I saw the highlight that it's questionable what's underneath the pavement, like asbestos or.
Well, they have the current owner has a no further remediation letter from the IEPA. So as long as the property is maintained with the cap and the cap that's in place right now, then there's no further remediation, there's no further work needed. So yes, in our contemplation of it being a parking lot, all the blacktop areas that are currently surfaced are going to remain. It's just a question of whether some of those have to be patched, repaired, or otherwise overlaid. And then we've talked about some additional street lighting, perhaps, and some other amenities, but the basic foundation and everything that's there will stay.
Additional questions or comments? Alderman Stevens.
I'm still concerned that this used to be an auto salvage yard from the 60s back. Is there any kind of a report on what's underneath this whatsoever? Because I'm afraid that it being by the river, and if EPA rulings change, the city's on the hook for remediation of whatever's underneath there. And I can only imagine, is there any kind of report about what is underneath that ground, or just a letter that says that because it's blacktop, we don't have to do anything?
City Attorney.
Two parts to that answer. Number one is we will, as part of our due diligence under the contract, be entitled to have a phase 1, and if necessary, a phase 2 environmental audit done on the property. Part of that phase 1 environmental audit is going to reveal the no further remediation letter issued by the state of Illinois EPA with respect to the property. The NFR, no further remediation letter by the state, specifically says that the current owner and future owners are relieved of any obligation to do any further work on the property for environmental purposes unless you change the property. You know, if you dig into it, you put up a building, things like that, then you have to go back to the state and show whatever you're doing, while they comply with the NFR as previously issued, or they'll tell you what you need to do in your construction methods to comply with EPA standards. So long as that NFR says that the cap currently in place is sufficient, then no, the city is not liable for any further actions. To take that step further also, by obtaining, and the reason we do the phase 1 and if necessary phase 2 environmental audits is so that the city would then be what's called a bona fide purchaser under CERCLA laws, the environmental laws dealing with liability for environmental hazards. By doing that, we become a bona fide purchaser, then we're no longer subject to fines or penalties from the EPA if in fact there is contamination under the ground. In certain cases, you may still have to clean it up in those cases, but the NFR takes care of that issue. So we will do the phase 1, phase 2 pursuant to the contract that I've drafted. If the NFR does not meet the requirements of what we are comfortable with, we would then cancel the contract and not buy the property. If the evaluation turns up work that's been done since the NFR was issued that does not comply with the NFR and the remedial action plan approved by IEPA, we would not buy the property, or we'd make them fix it first. But in essence, yes, you're protected by the contract first, and that NFR letter is, of course, the ultimate get-out-of-free jail card.
Additional questions or comments? Alderman Porter.
So that basically covers it for life then? I mean, if hazardous waste starts leaking into the river, we're still covered under that letter? We don't have to pay to fix it?
If the purpose for having the NFR is to relieve us from future liability. If we do something that causes waste to leach into the river, yes, we will have to clean it up. Now, from a practical standpoint, I'm not an environmental engineer. My guess is the site is a lot like the old foundry site. Most of the waste has probably gone into the river and down to the Gulf of Mexico already. That's exactly what we found out what happened with the Leith building.
Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Freeman.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
No.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
No.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank. 7 in favor.
Motion is approved. It'll come back in ordinance form. Chairman Brooks? You're up.
Motion to approve the work authorization from CES Incorporated in the lump sum of amount of $35,450 for the Southwest Sanitary Sewer Study easements. This work will be paid for from line item 61-5-820-6190.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Porter.
Aye.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
No.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion is passed.
Motion C, a motion to approve the work authorization from CES Incorporated in the amount of $22,950 to complete the preliminary engineering for the updates to the Southeast Sanitary Sewer Study. This work will be paid for from line item 61-5-820-6190.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Sanderson.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
No.
Brooks.
Aye.
Crawford.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion is passed.
Motion D, have a motion to approve the proposal from CES Incorporated in the amount of $9,300 to complete the design engineering for the South Sewer Trunk Manhole Rehabilitation Project. This will be paid for from sewer line item 61-5-820-6040.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Sanderson,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously.
Motion E, Mayor, I might have the Director of Public Works handle this. It's a motion to approve the original letter of credit in the amount of $654,567.51, which may be reduced to $163,642. The reduced amount represents 25% of the original amount, which must remain in place until all the public improvements have been completed and accepted by the city.
I would just add that that is Sager Plat number 3. That was the item that we were discussing at committee.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the motion will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Sanderson,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously.
And motion F is to approve the biennial bridge inspections on a time and material basis not to exceed $8,600. This work will be paid for from line item 01-5-360-6140, engineering services.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion on the motion at this time? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Stevens,
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Sanderson,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously.
And motion G, Mayor, is to approve the proposal from William Charles Electric in the amount of $34,980 to install camera detection equipment at the intersection of Business 20 and Beloit Road. IDOT will reimburse the city for 50% of the total cost of $17,490. This work will be paid for from line item 01-5-330-6022.
Motion out of committee. Questions or comments? Alderman Snow.
Just for the public's information, these are not red light cameras. These are for the movement of traffic through the intersection in lieu of the loops in the asphalt.
Thank you for clarifying that, Alderman Snow. Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brooks,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Sanderson,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. And finally,
Motion H is to approve the 2019 MFT street maintenance program as outlined in memo dated January 3rd, 2019, from Public Works Director Brent Anderson.
motion on a committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Alderman Freeman.
I just had a quick question for Brent. It really doesn't pertain to this, but I wanted to get it in before we adjourn. Is it Baxter and Woodman that did our sump pump study for the south side flooding? And I think they promised us results back the beginning of January.
If you haven't, I thought we had summary in the packet, but if I haven't put it in there, I'll get it for you.
Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Sanderson,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Nine in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, Chairman Brooks. Which brings us to item 11, adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Alderman Sanderson, second by Alderman Ratcliffe. Questions, comments? Anybody want to stay a while? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ladies
Aye.
and gentlemen? Okay. You want to stay? We are now adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.